Hello and welcome to Breaking the Cycle. My name is Alan Hyde, and tonight we are joined by a local therapist, a licensed marriage and family therapist, Troy Callaway. Troy, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So we were chatting before the show started, and we'll catch you guys up, but Troy, you've been practicing for quite some time, haven't you?
There was a break in between, but I looked for other things for a little while, but yeah. Since I've been in the field since '88, licensed later after that.
Yeah. And you mentioned you work with adolescents, but you really 5 and older. You'll work with adults, you work with children, adolescents. What would you say is just kind of like where you're at right now with your practice, what you work with the most?
Age 5 and up, but there's generally a good mix. Sometimes there are folks in their 20s struggling a little bit with couples. I haven't seen young ones in a while, but around 12 and up, a fair amount. I occasionally get someone in their 70s.
Yeah. And what are the predominant issues you would say these days people are reaching out to you for?
I would say it runs the gamut. Rebellious kids or kids struggling in school, some addictions, couples, behavioral addictions.
Why don't we dive into that for a moment? If you could just describe for me behavioral addictions.
Probably the most common would be sex addiction, pornography, a little bit with eating disorders, but they tend to find someone more specialized than that. I used to carry the certified compulsive gambling counselor certification.
Yeah.
No one knocked on the door for that.
Yeah.
You might hear about it, but they didn't say. They usually like, I don't want to work on that.
Yeah.
I don't want to quit that. So.
Yeah, it's like when you're driving through Vegas and you hear the radio station talking about if you have a problem with gambling, it's like they're in the casino right now. They're not calling.
Yeah.
Are you a 12-step advocate? Do you send people to support groups off of your work, or what are kind of some of your approaches when someone comes in?
When I get in the field, my supervisor was in recovery. The 2 counselors there were in recovery. I was taking kids to AA meetings, occasionally NA meetings. And so I was immersed in 12 steps, not being in recovery myself, but learning it, seeing where I could apply it, and later learning about, smart recovery, rational recovery, and any other tactics. So I didn't really have a dog in the fight, but I went with what worked and where my client was willing to go.
Yeah. Did you see a lot of clients wanting to go to smart recovery versus 12-step recovery?
Not as much, and it was harder to find, I guess. But I have one now that prefers smart recovery. I think he does more online. Occasionally he catches a meeting.
My basic understanding of smart recovery over the years is that it's a little bit more kind of cognitive behaviorally based. Are there pieces in that are more in depth? I'm a big 12-step advocate, so I don't do a lot of work with smart recovery, but mostly because of what you were saying. It's like the area I was in, you couldn't find it anywhere. But how would you describe smart recovery, just at a fly-by glance? If I
go with their ABCs. I don't get too deep into it, but what is the activating event? What's the false belief? Belief. What are the consequences of following that false belief? So backing up, activating event. Come home and I'm bored, or I'm lonely, or I'm, what is it? Okay, well, I get to drink, or I need to drink. That's the belief. What are the consequences? And get them to really go through the consequences of, if I drink, what's going to happen? How am I going to beat myself up, or, your health, everything. And then dispute the false belief. And so there I usually get them to make as many, as close to 101 things you can do instead of drink. And then evaluate that and give yourself the dopamine reward of how does it feel if you don't drink, if you do this instead, if you go learn to play the guitar, or if you call a friend or pay your bills or something? In the long run, do they feel better about that? Is it worth it? Are they willing to continue then? But I find a nice overlap. The first guy that taught me smart recovery, I think at the time he would call it rational recovery, but he was very much about pick sides. You have to pick sides. And I think in the small book, Jack Trimpey does a lot of that. You have to pick sides. I'm like, no, you don't. They work beautifully together. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think just like in any approach, if you're willing to have an open mind, that's our base.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it can get real rigid out there in the treatment modalities and theories, but I've always found solace in having open mind. So A, B, C, D, E, real simple to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll put that in the comments for later, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
And I also noticed you have a background in treating trauma and
Yes.
some further educations on top of your degree in treating like EMDR and brain spotting and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What's your a flyby look at like your approach with EMDR?
Left brain, right brain. The left brain thinks more, the right brain feels more. And so sometimes we'll seesaw and we're being all emotional, we're not thinking rationally, or we're being all intellectual and we're ignoring our emotions. By bilateral stimulation, you're keeping both sides of the brain in the game, and you're able to interrupt the amygdala, which is the alarm center, and calm things down and reprocess more rationally. Sometimes it is quick. Little kids sometimes go fast. You're done, and you're like, really? We're done? You're good? You challenge it, and then sometimes, if it's deep and tangled, it's going to take a lot of work. I mean, and you may know this, it works more for singular events than for complex stuff.
Yeah.
Then the brain spotting helps more.
That's EMDR would be an area where I knew a little bit more, even that both of those aren't my kind of area of expertise, but brain spotting, I've only heard minimal things about it. I don't specifically study it, so I would love to hear and I'm sure everybody listening would love to hear a little bit more about brain spotting and how you use it.
Yeah, so we're dealing with the subconscious with all these, and I do neurofeedback too. I just keep learning more and more about the power of the subconscious brain, and things are locked away in there. So I tell my clients this. You notice my eyes are all over the place sometimes. I look at it as like there's a file drawer with about 1 million drawers, and I'm going, oh, I need that, I need that, I need this, and so clients can notice and realize if you get them thinking about, say, a favorite vacation. Start to get all the 5 senses involved in your emotions. What do you see here? What do you remember? What do you hear? What do you feel? What's the temperature and the time of year? You just get them all into the details, and all of a sudden they're looking somewhere, and you're like, is that it? And they're like, yeah. You feel it. You feel it drop into your body. Yes, okay. So that spot is your vacation spot. On the beach or wherever it is. And so that gives them a good quick example and a good place to go. Same with EMDR for if things are bad, how can I bail out of this bad memory and go somewhere nice? And so remember that spot. The traumas, I mean, positive and negative, you will have spots where your eyes will go. And so if they came for one specific event, I'll ask them about that real quick and notice where their eyes go. I'm like, okay, is that it? Yeah, that's it. Okay. We can move out of that, or we can, stay and work. There's a resource spot, and this gets a little more complicated, but to get the person there. Some people find it quickly, some people struggle with it. So the resource spot would be like, think of the Zen zone when you just kind of get deep into the subconscious, deep into a relaxed place where you can think things through. I'll call it the mind's workshop or the mind castle if you're a Sherlock Holmes fan. And, so now that we found a vacation spot, we check and see if they're more relaxed, grounded. All right, so calm and relaxed, grounded in here and now. You're not in the past. You're not in the future. You're right here, right now. And then resource. Your mind and body are a resource. There's no telling what each of us are going to accomplish in a lifetime with this and with this. So when you tap into that, I am a resource. I am resourced. And we get deep into that, okay? Calm, grounded, resourced. And they may think of a time where they felt that, or they may just go, oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. And then they feel it. Okay, so that's your resource spot. Remember that. We're going to use that. And we can use that in the treatment. And they may be on a problem spot, a trauma spot, and they go to the resource spot. And we can work back and forth at varying speeds and see how fast do we get that trauma to start chilling down. You said flyby, so there's plenty more details. That's a mixed hodgepodge there.
It's interesting, right? Because, I take a general kind of psychoanalytic approach. That's kind of traditionally how I was trained. But even in those theoretical approaches, what you're of like dropping into the body, feeling these different unconscious thoughts, connecting the ways in which we move through them. It's like no wonder, these theories have become so widely used and talked about. I mean, I've never sat and heard someone describe it, so it's just nice to be able to hear it and see like, this could be some real effective work. For you guys listening, we've dropped Troy's website. It's CallawayCounseling.com. If you're liking what he's talking about, and we'll definitely point you there more than once tonight, but if you're liking what Troy is sharing here, I would advise you go check it out. He's got a private practice. He's going to help you get to these spots.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that when you were talking about it that I was just kind of resonating with is like, even right now, when I process, I look specific places, and so when you were describing that, I was like, oh yeah. And I when we were kind of getting to know each other, I noticed you were doing that too. And it's like, I think a lot of us would relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people are about eye contact. And I find it distracting. I'm trying to think of stuff, especially if a client's telling me a lot of things. I sort of have a visual spot. So if they're here, I'm kind of looking about where you are often, or looking at my laptop. I'm trying to visualize what they're saying. I'll glance over at them, but if I look too long, now I'm distracted. Sure. Now I can't. I'm not listening to you. So some people get used to that. Yeah. I gave myself permission to look around when I realized, oh, that's what I'm doing. Okay, I'm accessing information, so this is okay to do. And especially when clients explain themselves, I'm like, oh, you're totally cool with that. Look wherever you need to, man.
That's such a common experience. I used to do it back before I was a clinician. I would explain like, oh, just I look up sometimes when I process, and I would tell people, or clients will explain themselves in that, and it's like, it's okay. That's just part of the deal.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those, I'm sure you've noticed, I'm one of those eye contact guys, but when I process, I'll stare at the roof or the ground, and it is comforting to me. And so I was resonating with that piece, and I'm sure a bunch of people listening, they're like, oh, that's why I do that.
Well, and a lot of it's unconscious too, because even people who demand eye contact, you watch them, they're going to look away. They don't realize it. They're brain spotting now. So, yeah.
What got you into all this? Like, what got you passionate about working with people on these kind of more, if we would want to call it like spiritual, but like emotional and healing, and what drew you in these directions?
Are we going back to college days, or the EMDR days, or how far back are we going?
where do you want to start? Do you want to go all the way back? How much time do we have?
Long time ago. I never took a psychology class in high school or college until like the second semester of my junior year. I thought psychology, like it's a no-brainer. And I was like, well, then why is it not your major? I took one class and went, holy smokes! This is what I was born for. So I had to cram it all in. I missed some of the good classes, which I got later with my master's, but just ate it up. And not being much of an adult myself, it's like, okay, adolescence, I remember that time. That was a rough time. I can work with them. I can help them. So I worked with them for 15 years, give or take, 20, I don't remember. I never really stopped, but a lot of it was full time. And they said, well, you're going to work with kids, you better get your addiction license. So I jumped in and got that. And then started my master's, 4 years into it. And you have your marriage and family, right? You said? Yeah. So that systems thinking was right up my alley.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I like this. This is how we operate. Okay. So that was just a blessing to there. Then I'd actually dropped out of the field for a while for financial reasons. You're not going to make much money unless you're in private practice,
especially in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, I tell new people as quick as you can switch over if you want to stay in the field and make a decent living. So where was I? I dropped. I contracted with the military. I'm helping with their medical records program for about 7 years, and I knew I'd come back, so I got back to it, private practice, do or die. And so I have a friend I've known since junior high, and she got me hooked up with another person, and the two of them were already doing EMDR, and they said, you got to do this. So I jumped in as quick as I could, and then not long after that, so Francine Shapiro figured out EMDR, and I believe one of her colleagues who helped her, David Gran, started noticing what people's eyes were doing. And so he took off with the brain spotting. And he worked with athletes too. I love working with athletes. So I was like, oh, this is my guy. Yeah. Well, one of David Gran's colleagues stopped by a clinic that I was doing some extra work at for a few weeks. And they said, you got to meet this lady, Lynn. That's all I remember. I don't remember her last name. And then she took off to work with a VA hospital somewhere. But she said, yeah, David Gran, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, looked it up. There was a quick download of a course, functioned that for a while. It's like, okay, this really launches things. And then went from there.
Is he the gentleman too, where like with the athletes, he dove more into that concept of like the focal point that a lot of athletes use, like where they find a spot on the field or the court where they focus? And I think I saw an article people were linking to Graham.
He might. I know he talks about peak performance.
Yeah.
And so it's a spot for that, and he does that with actors, singers, performers. Anyone, where is your and I'll do that with anyone. Where is your best you spot, your highest, greatest self? Where, when you think of that, whatever age you felt your best, where are you looking? Where are you feeling? Okay, that's it. And that's a good one. I don't know if that references what you were.
Yeah, I was more just riffing too on the, because I've heard of all the names that you're sharing. I've heard of these things, and a lot of people are really, especially the last like 10, 15 years, are finding success with EMDR and brain spotting and stuff. And yeah, so it's been floating around for quite some time.
Yeah. And so you had asked about I guess something about trauma, but my colleagues were working with trauma, and so okay, this is a good way to help people get out of that. Again, it works better with the simple trauma. You get into complex stuff, and you're untangling a big ball of strings.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that's where the brain spotting helps out more if you can get them going there.
When you do your EMDR, are you a hand waver or a light bar guy?
Not so much of either. There's these TheraTappers.
That's right. Yeah, the vibration.
Green
right?
things that vibrate back and forth. There's two main companies. I think Neurotech is the more expensive one. They're proud of their stuff. And then TheraTappers.com, can I say that? That's where I order mine. They're more reasonable. They last years. Every once in a while you're replacing the cords, but those are fantastic. Now, also auditory. I have in my office, let's see if we look at it this way, a speaker in this corner and a speaker in that corner, catty corner from each other, kind of covers wherever you're sitting in the room. And for years, I had David Grand had one CD with a river that just flowed back and forth between the two. I played that thing all day for 5 or 6 years till it finally burnt a little spot in the CD and it quit working. For me, even if we're not getting deep into something, if we're just having a conversation, it's still giving you the bilateral stimulation. Sometimes I am doing the hand wave. I never bought the light bar because my colleagues had bought it and they're like, it just sits in the corner.
Yeah.
And when I contracted with the military, I saw those. Everyone was like, what is that? And they go, oh, that's EMDR. I was like, I've heard of that. You know.
Yeah.
So
I was imagining like a carnival with like those rides with the lights that go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds nice. The waves going back and forth too. I'm just imagining like what would it be like to sit in Troy's office? Yeah, it was a nice little picture you were drawing there.
Yeah, and I have a nice window. The whole wall is a window, and there's a creek back there and a bunch of trees. So people walk in and go, oh, this is nice.
Yeah. In your office is in what city?
It's in Arlington.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Off with the Green Oaks, Little Road area, Pleasant Ridge, I-20.
Nice.
Then ballparks it.
There you go. And did you study in this area too, the Dallas area, or in Texas in general?
Let's see. I did my bachelor's in Sherman at Austin College, and then I did my master's at Texas Women's University.
Oh, interesting.
And the first time I saw that over somebody's desk, I'm like, what's that guy doing at a women's university? He was the administrator of the hospital I worked at, and then a colleague said, oh, you got to go there. It's a great program. They want more males, and it's very experiential. You'll get a lot of stuff. And people from other programs have said, oh, yeah, you got more practice than we did. I'm like, oh, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Chalk up another blessing.
There you go. It's so funny because literally this last weekend I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were over in that area. What is that, the Denton area? Mm-hmm. And we were driving by and said, how many men do you think go to this school? It's just funny. Here I am a week later, and I'm sitting with one of them.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Small world.
There was one class. It was different models of therapy. And they got into some sort of I don't remember the name, a feminist model therapy, focusing on what are the females going through. And you had some older women, who had their fill of the male world. Mm-hmm. There's 3 guys in there and a bunch of women. Holy smoke. We're just sitting back quietly, listening, looking at each other like, don't say a word.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've had a couple of those run-ins. I mean, it's a very heavily female-dominated field, so those topics come up, and I've learned just keep my mouth shut. Especially because you're a trusted dude as well, so they know they don't need any feedback from you in this moment.
Yeah.
They've had about enough of that anyway.
Yeah.
So Texas Women's, and then you got into the field, and then you ended up taking some time off, came back, and is that when you got into private practice?
Yes.
Yeah.
Almost lost my house. I was about 8 or 9 months behind on payments. Bank's calling every so often. You still plan on keeping it? Yes, I'm keeping the house. had a brother in real estate get it sold to a friend of his, and paid all the debt off, and here we go. So it was nice. Yeah, I hope I don't ever have to work for anyone else again.
Yeah, you know, when we were just touching base with each other prior, and you said that, I was like, when I left working in treatment centers, because I did that for 10 plus years, working in substance use treatment centers. When I left, I knew I am never coming back to this. You know, it's like never say never, but it's at the same time, it's like I will do many other things first. And the top of that list is working for myself.
Yeah. Can't beat it. I grew up in a family where my dad was always self-employed. All my brothers were self-employed. There's 5 of us, and you kind of have that attitude of like, this is how it should work.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Any of the rest of them therapists, or just you?
No, just me.
Yeah. Yeah, my little sister is a school psychologist.
Okay.
So it's funny. You know, it's like she always knew she was going to be in this field. I kind of resonate more with you of like I had never thought about it. Once I found it, I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny when it becomes a family business. That's when you know it must have been real messed up. Yeah.
I've known a few.
Yeah.
Now you got me thinking.
Yeah. Do you practice with a lot of people that you went to school with, or like share referrals and keep in touch with a lot of people, or did you guys kind of all go your own ways?
It started with one friend. We had somehow gotten in touch, found out we worked in the same building for MHMR, and missed each other, and had wound up on some email list, and so got back in touch. She pulled me in with a crew. I don't know, there's about 8 people working in 5 offices, and then there was talk of upgrading or moving, and so everybody moved together. And it became 12 people in 8 offices. And we got tired of that building. And as is going to go, some of us got tired of each other. I'm guilty for being a pain. So I wanted us all to buy a building. We went 4 different directions. Well, 3/4 of us are in the same parking lot. And that has grown. There's about 30 counselors in the parking lot where my office is. You want a counselor, you can find one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then 1/4 of them went to Mansfield. So just the one classmate, but there's a chat. Even where there's friction, there's still a core group that texts, hey, I got this client needing this kind of help, this insurance company. Anyone? Or hey, anybody know a psychiatrist that deals with this population you can recommend? So we still talk through there.
Yeah.
Or hey, did y'all hear there was a shooting? Get ready. And like, oh yeah, they're already calling. Okay. Yeah, I got one in my office now. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a big one like 2 years ago, roughly? I remember I wasn't out here yet, but my sister lives out here, and I just remember there was a lot of uproar. Like even in California, there was a lot of conversations about it, and it was spreading pretty fast in the mental health world.
It's hard to remember which one. Yeah.
And there was a big one that was around here shooting. You know, I think it was this area. Was it Austin or something like that?
Sadly,
yeah.
How do you remember which one?
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Any?
Yeah. You know, that was when I had decided to move out here. A lot of people were saying it's really needed these days out here on the aftermath of a lot of that kind of stuff. People are really, I think, waking up in the area to like seeking more and more mental health services here and in the Midwest in general, like especially as you go a little bit more north of here, when you start to get into Oklahoma and Missouri and all that, there's not a lot of mental health services. It's growing, but you know, it was interesting to kind of come from a hotbed in California to more Midwest. But I'm finding obviously in the Dallas area, it's metro, so there's a lot of mental health services, but it is interesting.
Yeah.
So when those things are going on, you find yourself getting a lot of intakes and doing a lot of stabilization work with people? Or do you refer out for that?
We're talking about the shootings,
Or just like,
any
and I mean, I would imagine even with like natural disasters, or what was Snowmageddon a couple of years ago? People losing their minds.
Yeah, working from home, COVID, Snowmageddon, whatever comes up, just kind of roll with it. I guess one fortunate thing was that we're lumped in with the medical professionals as necessary. So when people could not go to their office or go to their job, I was still driving in. And the speed limit became 93 miles an hour.
There you go, flying down the freeway.
Highway was empty. I was like, this is nice.
Yeah.
Sorry for the rest of you, but this is nice. Yeah, so, and then you become a commodity because people want to see a therapist in the office. Oh, I'll do that. Yeah, let's go. A male therapist in the office. Hey.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I found that too when I stepped into private practice. A lot of people, they want a male therapist. It filled up pretty quick, but also, especially during COVID, I mean, everybody wanted to talk through what was going on. It was an interesting time when COVID first hit to be a therapist. It was fascinating with just the spikes and the conversations around anxieties and just, you know, obviously the more complex stuff that you and I are privy to, but to watch society on that level seek aid was an honor to be on the forefront of it too, to be there to offer a service, but it was fascinating to watch.
Yeah, that tech group. You guys seen a lot of marital problems? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Kids falling apart because they can't go to school and they have to wear a mask when they do go to school, and it's a mess. Yeah.
And you were in private practice when COVID first hit?
Yeah. So I think I'm in my 11th year now. Whew. Losing track.
Yeah. And you said before too, you treat couples, so this is a good segue, right? But so you saw kind of an increase in couples issues when the pandemic hit.
Yeah, they're driving each other crazy.
Yeah, that's a simple way. I mean, truly, dude, that's a simple way to put it. I mean, it's
Get
just
out of the
truth.
house. Yeah, that's cut and dry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think? Because I also noticed a lot of couples started during that time, which, you know, I think anytime there's kind of major stuff going on in the world, you see that people band together, and then also people that have already banded together want to rip each other's heads off. So there's obviously all that going on. But do you think a lot of some of these issues, and of course we could have a long conversation about this, is because partly there wasn't a foundation in those kind of relationships prior, or what would you say? I know that's can be a long conversation, but how do you conceptualize it?
Trying times to be together that long and go through the trials and tribulations. It tested people out. How committed are you? How well do you get along? How are you opposite? Are you very similar? Who's in control of the TV?
Yeah. Yeah, who's doing the dishes?
When are you going to go back to work? You probably heard about some COVID babies or pregnancies.
Oh, yeah.
The kids, depend on the size of the family and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know if that's answering your question.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, too, I'm kind of just exploring with you a little bit, having a good time chatting with you and hearing about your experience.
Yeah.
What do you think is next for you? Or are you at a phase where you're looking to? I saw in your bio there, if I had time, I would do this. Is there big plans for other things you want to study and get into, or are you kind of just coasting at this point into the sunset? What's your next plan?
No, I'm always thinking and dreaming, but how much can one person pull off? I'm not a manager kind of person, so bringing other people on board just becomes a stopping point or a huge challenge to get past that. You've heard of they call it energy psychology in the field. Otherwise, outside the field, you hear things like Reiki, or I learned something called BEST, bioenergetic synchronization technique, which, cutting the story short, part of that group morphed into the emergence process, and there's a lot of interesting things there. From that, I started collecting gadgets, an AO scan, alpha omega scan, that uses sound wave technology for healing. And more recently, a vibe bed or vibra bed that's taken that same concept but vibrating it into a mattress. And so,
interesting.
So I have more gadgets than I can juggle myself, so I need help. But not just help advertising. How do people find you? How many people are interested in this stuff or have heard of this technology? And there's just a lot out there, and it's trying to find out what's good, what's useful, what's not snake oil, what's actually going to help people. What are people open to? That's open a lot.
Yeah.
So,
have you found anything yet where it's trustworthy enough on your end to bring into your practice?
when you say bring
like
in
any of these gadgets that you're
yeah,
finding that you're into?
I want to play the game where I get to own things and run off the taxes. I hope that doesn't get me an audit.
Yeah, we can cut that part out.
2018, I bought the Alpha Omega scan, and so just early this year, I bought the Vibra bed, and so I have those, and clients are interested, and some are interested in sticking with it. Like, this feels like it's helping. I like what this does. So they want to continue with it. I need more of me. I need 3 or 5 more of me. But I have a young lady who does the energy work and is willing to run the gadgets, the equipment that I collect. I got to get the advertisement going. I got to let people know I'm on the map. I do energy work and I have cool gadgets. Interested?
Yeah. New tab on your website, maybe.
Well, I'm working on that now, and that's sort of dragging communication with my web people, and anyway.
I've found headaches in those realms too. Navigating. They understand all the tech stuff and they try to explain it, and it's like I'm trying to explain what I want. Merging those two worlds, I find my Zen spot, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to get that going ASAP. Who knows? Maybe you just launched me where I need to go.
Hey, well, I'm always curious too. Of like, I had checked in with you before. Kind of first experience in a studio doing a podcast like this. What when I had reached out, like, what drew you in to decide to say, you know what, I'll do this?
It sounded interesting. Sounded like, this guy knows what he's doing. This sounds fun. Do an interview. Cool. Let's go see what happens. What's it gonna hurt? Yeah. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. You're the second male therapist I've had on the show. It's just nice.
Not many of us.
No, it's you got to comb through for a while to find them, and then hope you get a response. And so, very grateful.
Well, and I had a therapist move too far away to use her office anymore, and so one of the other therapists in my office, Melissa, said, well, I can put out a, beacon. And she goes, hey, this guy wants to talk to you. I was like, a male therapist?
Yeah.
No way.
Check it out.
How about that?
Yeah. Nice.
So I think there's 2 that are interested. I don't know we'll see.
Yeah. That'd be cool to just, as I get to know you, watch your stuff grow, and whatever directions you take it, I'll be a fan, watching, promoting you, sharing your stuff.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, any last kind of passions you would share if we were going to talk directly to our listeners, and things that, while you have a platform and possibly thousands of people are going to hear this just over the coming week, what would you share with them about therapy, normalizing maybe some of the work that you do? If someone was like, I'm on the fence, I kind of want to talk to someone, but I'm not sure, what might Troy say to that person?
There's a lot of directions to go there. You asked one question earlier. When I sent you my bio, I just did a cut and paste from Psychology Today, maybe added one line, and I realized, on Psychology Today there's check boxes, like one that says Christian counselor, but it wasn't in the bio. And so a lot of people seek me out for that, and you can speak the same language on that when somebody comes specifically for a Christian counselor. As far as counseling in general, we all need work.
If I'm to drill there just for a moment, we all need work.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
How would we relay that to them? Like, what work do we need as human beings? Like, because I think people hear that and they think like the heavy work, but like, we all need work. I always think is like, everybody's got something to work on. But would you say that differently?
Yeah. Well, so backing up, when I got into the field, when I decided I'm going to be a counselor, probably the second thought was, I get to work on me. So, any workshop you go to, you're like, okay, we're going to practice on each other. Y'all pair up. Like, all right. And then you're in tears over something you thought you fixed. Like, okay, thanks, man. Then learning EMDR. This was very interesting. Without disclosing, one of my colleagues that I was paired up with, we were in threes, so I'd work on him, he'd work on her, she'd work on me, and we'd trade off. And he had some things going on that caused him, I call it the hang dog. All right? So this takes a lot of muscle to hold your head up if you're going to sit like this for a long time. And so you sit back up, and pretty soon you're down again.
Yeah.
And so we worked specifically on what he had going on, and the belief was that he was defective. He had something going on, and rather than think of the one defect that was specific to him, he looked at his whole self as defective. And so I know that. I've been there. I've fought this. It's a constant battle. Sit back up, and before you know it, you're back down again.
Yeah.
And so we did the EMDR, and in the class, we're doing the little fingers. That's all we had. And very quickly, he went from defective to, I don't remember what it was. I just say, I rock. Because he had a job, he had a wife, he had kids. I think he had a kid on the way, a master's degree. So life rocks. I mean, life's great. All of a sudden, he's sitting up. And the next day at the conference, he goes, man, it feels like a steel rod back here. Like, I keep waiting for it to drop, and it didn't drop. And I was like, I wish I knew EMDR when I was going through that. But what that told me was, oh my gosh, this is how you clean house, right? So I've had friends and family, and you can clean that stuff up. When I learned it, I had all these memories that, like, everybody think about it. Stupid things you said, embarrassing things you did, things that happen to you, whether it's little things or huge, it's what you make of it. And that's how it affects you. And so is there a belief that you're holding on inside, like, oh, I'm stupid, or I was an idiot, or I'm a failure, or okay. So those beliefs are what we're working on with the EMDR. And anyway, I cleaned house. I'm like, all those things that leave me red in the face or angry that happened decades ago, and I'm sitting in the chair and nobody's in the room, I'm going, I was like, why?
Yeah.
When does that go away? And I learned the EMDR. I was like, holy smokes, clean slate in the first year. And the subconscious brain just starts going, oh, you figured out how to fix stuff. Here's another memory. Remember this one? Remember this one? Remember this one? Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. I could be driving in the car and I would just do my eyes back and forth, or I would grip the steering wheel back and forth, or, you can tap your knees. They call this the butterfly hug. You can be scrunching your toes inside your shoes. Something bilateral. There's a lot of music out there, bilateral music.
And for those listening along, Troy is going through, he's showing you the different motions. The butterfly is across, of your arms, and you're tapping kind of below your shoulders.
Yeah, below the shoulder, the collarbone is a good spot. So cross your wrists over your heart and just tap left, right, left, right, left, right. And that is the bilateral stimulation of the brain. It's like you got two friends. Hey, come here. Hey, you, come here. I need both of you. All right, so you're keeping them both in the game, both sides of the brain, the rational thinking side and the emotional side. And all of a sudden, memories from long ago just chill out.
Yeah, and that's connecting earlier when you were saying, and I've heard this with the EMDR too, but for those who are following with us, those simple experiences, not the complex traumas, but those simple experiences really, like you were saying, they start to feed in. And it's like, let me resolve this, let me resolve this, let me resolve this.
And I'm glad you said the ones I cleaned house on, there was not any serious trauma like we might think of, big stuff. So yeah, because there's something called looping, where the brain starts replaying, looping, and you can get caught in a trauma, and you kind of go, some people have gotten catatonic. Now, I had colleagues that experienced this. Fortunately, for whatever reason, I did not get anyone stuck in that mode. Maybe it's the brain spotting that got them out, kept him out, I don't know, or just knowing ahead of time from my colleagues, hey, watch out for this. So that is one you want to be aware of. Or are you trying to fix some big, deep, serious trauma on your own, or, with your friend, your neighbor? Maybe seek a professional.
Yeah, that might be a good idea.
Yeah. Who can bring you out of that if you get stuck. So.
Yeah. I like that last part. Kind of circles into, like, as we share with them, as they're listening to you and those who are enjoying what you're sharing, it's like, if you're feeling stuck, reach out to a professional. If you like what you heard from Troy tonight, his website is in the comments. It's going to be in any description of anywhere you find where I've posted it, and you'll be able to find his website and get in touch with Troy for therapy. I have 2 questions left for you, and then I'm going to let you be a free bird. But who is your favorite childhood cartoon?
Favorite? Dennis the Menace.
Dennis the Menace.
Oh, we go way back. Yeah.
That's a good one. How would Dennis the Menace benefit from seeing you for therapy?
That's funny. I refer to one of his cartoons. There's a lot of the one-framers, right? So he's... You gotta know Dennis the Menace. All right, so he's come in from outside. He's leaning on the door, and his mom's over here in the kitchen like, what? And he goes, I got on my own nerves today. I don't know if that answers your question, but Dennis the Menace, well, you said, well,
how would he benefit? How would you help him through that?
How would I help him through that? EMDR.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a quick line. EMDR that.
I've heard that line before.
Yeah. Or joking as therapists in the same office will go, follow that.
Yeah.
Just go with that. Yeah.
If you were to start a mental health amusement park, what would be the first ride that you built and why?
A mental health amusement park. Wow. That could be fun. That really starts a lot of creativity.
Yeah. Could be anything you want.
I gotta get my tablet and paper. Do you want to work on this together? we gotta open one of these. I'm thinking of the drop out of your problems. The Six Flags used to have, was it the Texas shootout that dropped about 4 to 6 stories and all right, I got it. So experiential therapy, the ropes courses, did that years ago, and occasionally we'll use that. And a couple of friends bought a ropes course from the hospital on 287 that changes hands now and then. They bought it and moved it out to Alvarado, and we would have, they did all the advertising. They would call us to come run these groups. And so you're looking for the metaphor in the group challenge, whether it's a single person activity or it's a multi-person activity. So you put the metaphor to it, all right? How long you got? Now you got my brain going.
What would you call the ropes course? Like, what would you name it?
Ropes course. They used to use acronyms for it. I mean, it was experiential therapy was kind of the industry term. Ropes stood for something that I'll never remember. You had group challenges.
You get to name this one. It can be whatever you want to name it.
I think I would just stick with experiential therapy. So if you had an amusement park and the experiential therapy park.
Just the ride. What if it was just the ropes course and that was an attraction there? What would you name it?
You had the Texas shootout where you're jumping. See, they had a pamper pole where you climbed up a telephone pole, stood on top of it, and jumped out to the trapeze. And for me, that was the most powerful one. I did it in college, at a college class that did the outdoor education. That would compare most to the Texas shootout. But on the pole, you're in control of when you jump. On the Texas shootout, it's happening. Yeah. You got on the ride, it's happening. But you would put in the 1, 2, 3, go. For me, that pamper pole was whether it's I was an introvert, shy. I got to say something to somebody. I don't want to say it. Whether it's asking a girl out or it's confronting someone because they did something you didn't like, and now you got to speak up. Whatever it is, 1, 2, 3, go. It's like hesitating. You got to say it. Do it. Go. And so standing on that pole and jumping, and I didn't want to just jump out. I wanted that trapeze in my hands. You defined your success. Was it just jump, or was it jump and slap it, or jump and grab it? I didn't want to miss. So they thought I'd never jump. But anyway, so on the Texas shootout, I'm sure you could relate the same some way.
So you would call it 1, 2, 3, go?
Sure, 1, 2, 3, go.
We named it for you.
There's a lady with a video similar to that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. We'll attach it out there somewhere. That's a good one. 1, 2, 3, go.
Fair enough. Well, Troy, thank you for coming on. It's been a blast chatting with you.
Thank you, Alan. This was great. Good meeting you. I appreciate the time.
Yeah.
The experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, we break the cycle here every Friday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll see you here next Friday. We love you.